The night of October 31st was always strange in Bumbleberg. A thick fog rolled in from the river, swallowing the streets whole. It clung to the lampposts and made shadows dance like spooky ghosts. The air grew cold, carrying the smell of dry leaves and something else. Something like burnt sugar and old magic. This was the kind of night when you felt like you were being watched. Every creak of a floorboard, every rustle in the bushes made your heart jump. It was a perfect night for tricks. And, well, an even better night for a villain to make his grand entrance. This was the night the Jack-o'-lantern jester loved most. He waited all year for this one spooky evening. He wasn't like other villains who wanted to take over the city or steal valuable things. No, his goal was much simpler and honestly much creepier. He wanted to have fun. His idea of fun was playing tricks on everyone in town. He loved to see people jump in fright. He giggled when they shrieked. For him, Halloween wasn't about candy, it was about creating the biggest, spookiest playground of fear he could possibly imagine. And this year he had a brand new plan. He appeared as if from nowhere, a flicker of orange in the deep grey fog. He wore a jester's costume, all patched with shades of autumn orange and midnight black. But his head was not a head at all. It was a carved pumpkin, a jack-o'-lantern with a wide, wicked grin and triangular eyes that glowed with an inner light. A little bell on his hat jingled softly with every step, a sound that promised mischief and mayhem. He carried a single unlit candle in his hand, his smile growing wider as he looked upon the quiet, unsuspecting city. His laughter echoed through the empty streets, a sound like crackling leaves. It wasn't a mean laugh, but it was filled with so much mischief that it sent a shiver down your spine. He wasn't here to hurt anyone, not really. He was here to scare them. He wanted to turn their fun Halloween night into a real-life ghost story, a tale they would tell for years to come. The Jack-o'-lantern jester was ready to play his game, and the entire city of Bumbleberg was the game board. The fun was just about to begin. You're in for a scare. The Jack-o'-lantern. Jester's power was as strange as he was. He had control over fire, but it wasn't the kind of fire that burns. It wasn't hot or dangerous. Instead, his fire was like the soft, gentle flame of a candle. It flickered with a warm orange glow, but gave off no heat. You could touch it, and it would feel like passing your hand through cool air. This gentle fire was the source of all his tricks. He could make it dance in the air, forming spooky shapes that would float through the streets. He could make it whisper, telling silly, scary riddles to anyone who passed by. His real power, however, came from his special candles. These weren't ordinary wax candles. They were made of solidified moonlight and pumpkin spice, or so the legend says. When the jester lit one of his candles, his magic grew stronger. With a single lit candle, he could make pumpkins sing spooky songs. With two, he could make scarecrows get up and dance a clumsy jig. Each candle he placed and lit was like a magical antenna, boosting his power and spreading his spooky influence further and further across the city. The candles were his tools for a night of frightful fun. This strange, harmless fire made him incredibly tricky. People weren't afraid of the flames themselves, but of what they could do. A floating ball of light might seem pretty at first, until it suddenly takes the shape of a giant spider right in front of your face. A softly glowing path might seem inviting, until the cobblestones beneath your feet start giggling. The jester used his fire to create illusions, to play with shadows, and to make the ordinary world seem suddenly and terribly strange. His brand of scariness wasn't about danger, it was about surprise. He would sneak through the town, a shadowy figure with a flickering grin. He'd place a candle on a doorstep and suddenly the door knocker would start telling bad jokes. He'd put one near a garden gnome and the gnome would start complaining about the weather. The Jack-o'-lantern jester was a master of surprise. His goal was to make everyone question what was real. Was that a real ghost or just one of his fiery tricks? You could never be sure, and that was exactly how he liked it. Reader beware, his tricks are everywhere. The jester's ultimate trick was his fun house. But this wasn't a building you could just walk up to. It wasn't made of wood or bricks. His fun house was made of fear, fire and imagination. It started small. He would find an old, abandoned warehouse on the edge of town. He would step inside, snap his fingers and light his first candle. Instantly, the empty space would change. Walls would appear, painted with glowing, swirling patterns. A hallway would stretch out, its floor seeming to ripple like water. The funhouse had been born, and it was hungry for more candles. With every candle he lit inside, the funhouse grew larger and more complex. A second candle might create a hall of mirrors, but these mirrors didn't show your reflection. They showed a sillier, spookier version of you with a pumpkin for a head. A third candle could create a room where the floor was bouncy like a trampoline, and ghosts made of cool fire would float around trying to play tag. A fourth candle would power a crooked staircase that led nowhere, its steps changing size with every step you took. The funhouse was a living, breathing labyrinth of his own creation. The more candles he lit, the more control he had over his creation. With a dozen candles burning, he could change the layout of the funhouse just by thinking about it. He could make a door disappear the moment you reached for it. He could make a room spin around and around, or even turn it completely upside down. He was the puppet master, and the funhouse and everyone inside it were his puppets. His laughter would echo from the very walls as he watched people get lost in his silly, scary maze. He was the king of his creepy castle. His goal was to lure the citizens of Bumbleberg inside. He'd use his fire illusions to create a trail of glowing candies leading right to the entrance. He'd make the funhouse music sound like a cheerful circus, inviting and fun. But once you were inside, the real game began. The doors would vanish, the tricks would start, and the only way out was to navigate his maze of harmless horrors. The Jack-o'-lantern jester didn't want to keep people forever. He just wanted to give them a Halloween scare they would never, ever forget. It was all a game to him. For Bumbleberg's resident hero, Larry Boy, this villain was a unique kind of problem. Larry Boy was used to fighting villains who threw giant pies or tried to tie people up with licorice ropes. Those were problems he could solve with his super suction ears. But how do you fight a villain whose fire doesn't burn? How do you punch a ghost made of cool light? The Jack-o'-lantern jester wasn't physically dangerous, which made him a confusing and frustrating foe. You can't just smash his illusions or punch a trick. It was a battle of wits, not brawn. The jester's power made him a mighty opponent. His funhouse was the main challenge. It was a constantly changing fortress of fear. Larry Boy couldn't just break down the walls, because the walls were made of magic and light. He couldn't just fly over the maze, because the ceiling would change and block his path. The jester's control was absolute as long as his candles remained lit. This meant Larry Boy's usual methods wouldn't work. He had to play the jester's game, but he had to play it smarter. The hero had to face his fears to get through the fun house. This villain was tricky on a whole new level. The jester knew that Larry Boy was brave, so he didn't use things that were truly terrifying. Instead, he used things that were silly and annoying. He'd create rooms full of rubber chickens that squeaked relentlessly. He'd conjure up phantoms that told Larry Boy his cape was on crooked. He tried to distract the hero, to frustrate him and to make him give up not out of fear but out of sheer annoyance. The jester's tricks were a mental challenge, designed to wear down even the most determined hero. To face this foe, Larry Boy had to prepare differently. He couldn't rely on his strength alone. He knew the source of the jester's power was the candles. His mission was clear. He had to enter the funhouse, navigate the silly scares and tricky traps, and find every single one of the jester's magic candles. He would have to blow them out one by one. With each extinguished flame, the funhouse would weaken and the jester's power would fade. It was a race against time, a spooky showdown inside a magical maze. Larry Boy put on his helmet, activated his suction ears, and prepared to face the fiery, funny frights.